Sarah Thompson settled into seat 13F with the practiced ease of someone who had flown hundreds of times, yet today felt different. The window beside her reflected the pale morning light creeping across the tarmac of Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. The cabin smelled faintly of coffee and jet fuel, a combination she had always found oddly grounding. Around her, passengers arranged their belongings, adjusted their headphones, scrolled on devices, or whispered to companions. A child across the aisle pressed his tiny fingers to the window, mesmerized by the mechanical hum and shimmering reflections of the rising sun on the airport's glass towers. To everyone else, she was just another traveler, perhaps a businesswoman, a student, or someone on vacation. But beneath her calm exterior, Sarah's mind churned, replaying memories that were decades old. Memories of the cockpit, of metal and fire, of life-or-death decisions made in the stratosphere where mistakes were fatal. She had been one of the few women to command an F-22 Raptor squadron in the United States Air Force, and though she had left that life behind, it remained etched into her bones, a quiet rhythm that pulsed every time she boarded a plane. She adjusted her scarf and glanced at the flight attendants performing their pre-flight checks. They moved with precision, a silent choreography that reassured passengers. One of them, a young woman barely out of training, passed Sarah with a polite smile. Sarah returned it, a flicker of familiarity passing between them, the look of someone who recognized competence, even if they couldn't articulate why. She tucked her badge discreetly under her sleeve, a relic from her days in the Air Force, knowing full well that in the wrong hands it could invite questions. The engines roared to life, a deep, vibrating hum that resonated through the cabin floor. Sarah's knuckles pressed lightly against the armrest. She could feel the subtle vibrations under her fingertips, a sensation that made her memories surge forward like tidal waves. She remembered the first time she had climbed into the cockpit of an F-22, the cold metal, the tight harness, the smell of burning hydraulics, and the instant realization that a single wrong move could cost not just her life, but the lives of everyone below. Those lessons had been brutal, exacting, and unforgiving, shaping her into someone who measured decisions in seconds. As the plane began its taxi down the runway, a soft chime indicated that all passengers should fasten their seatbelts. Around her, travelers complied with varying degrees of urgency. Some struggled with stubborn straps, others tucked their belongings into overhead bins with the clatter of metal and plastic. Sarah fastened hers with calm precision, sliding the buckle into place, her movements smooth and practiced. She let her mind wander briefly, thinking of the city she was heading to, the dull conference she was attending, and the quiet apartment she would return to afterward. Her life had become ordinary, or so she thought. The intercom crackled as the flight attendant's voice cut through the hum of conversation and the drone of the engines. "Cabin crew, prepare for unusual air traffic," the voice said. The words were calm, professional, but Sarah's stomach lurched. Something about that phrasing was wrong, too precise, too clinical. Her eyes flicked to the window again, scanning the bright tarmac, but nothing seemed amiss. The other passengers murmured, some glancing at each other, puzzled but unconcerned. To them, it was likely a routine security precaution. Sarah's fingers tightened imperceptibly around the armrest. She had been trained to read patterns, to detect anomalies invisible to the casual observer. Something in that announcement triggered a memory deep in her mind, a warning she had received years ago during a routine patrol over the Pacific. At first, it had seemed insignificant, almost bureaucratic, but she had learned the hard way that nothing in her world was ever truly insignificant. Her pulse accelerated subtly, a quiet drumbeat of anticipation beneath her calm exterior. The pilot's voice then came through the intercom, steady but carrying an edge Sarah recognized immediately. "All passengers, please remain seated. We are experiencing unusual air traffic. Expect delays." The casual phrasing was meant to soothe, but to Sarah it was a signal. Her training kicked in automatically, eyes scanning, mind cataloging, body tensing. She wasn't just a passenger. Deep down, she knew she never really could be again. Outside, through the oval window, she noticed a subtle movement, a glint of metal far above the clouds, almost imperceptible but unmistakable to someone trained to see it. It was the kind of detail that would escape every ordinary observer, the trajectory, the subtle changes in angle, the synchronized alignment suggesting intent rather than randomness. Her heartbeat quickened as recognition struck. F-22 Raptors. And not just any Raptors, these were from a squadron she had once led. The sheer improbability of their presence in this airspace sent an icy shiver down her spine. The plane's engines roared louder as it began its ascent, the cabin vibrating with the thrust of the jets. Around her, passengers murmured, some craning to look out the windows. The child across the aisle pressed his face closer to the glass, oblivious to the significance of the moment. Sarah kept her gaze forward, her mind racing. Her instincts, dormant for years, flared to life, reminding her of who she was beneath the veneer of a civilian life. A sudden announcement made her flinch. "Attention crew, we may be receiving an incoming communication." The words were innocuous to anyone else, but Sarah's stomach knotted. Incoming communication meant one thing. Someone was aware of their flight, tracking them, and potentially communicating directly. Her eyes flicked to the badge under her sleeve, the old call sign she had carried for years, a symbol that had once commanded respect and authority in the skis. She hadn't used it in over a decade, and yet the world was about to demand it again. As the plane climbed, the clouds parting below in waves of white and gray, a strange quiet settled over the cabin. The other passengers were oblivious, still absorbed in devices, small talk, or sleep. But Sarah could feel the tension in the air, the kind of tension that only a seasoned pilot, one who had faced life-or-death decisions hundreds of times, could detect. Every fiber of her being was alert. Every instinct screamed that this flight, this ordinary-looking flight, was about to become extraordinary. The engines hummed steadily now, carrying the plane higher, yet Sarah couldn't shake the growing sense of anticipation. Someone, was waiting for her in the sky. And deep inside, she knew that when the moment arrived, she wouldn't be able to hide. She wasn't just Sarah Thompson, passenger. She was Viper 6, and the world was about to remember it. The flight attendant moved down the aisle, checking seatbelts, offering water, smiling politely. Sarah caught her reflection in the polished surface of the overhead bin, a calm face, eyes steady, hands composed. Yet beneath the mask, a storm of memory, training, and instinct churned. The calm before the storm. Then, just as the plane leveled off at cruising altitude, the intercom crackled again. This time, a single, low, authoritative voice that cut through the hum of engines, the chatter of passengers, and the routine calm of flight attendants. 13F, do you copy? Sarah froze. Her heart skipped a beat. That call, the tone, the cadence, the authority was unmistakable. It wasn't a mistake. Someone had recognized her. Someone had called her by the name she thought she had left behind. And at that moment, the world inside seat 13F changed forever. The intercom crackled again, sharper this time, breaking through the background hum of the cabin. 13F, respond immediately. Identification required. Sarah's hand froze over the armrest. She had expected curiosity, small talk, maybe even recognition from a stranger, but this was different. The voice wasn't tentative or procedural. It was precise, almost electric, commanding obedience and demanding respect. The tone itself carried authority. She glanced around the cabin. Passengers were oblivious, some scrolling through phones, others murmuring quietly. None had a clue that the words she was hearing could alter the course of their flight or their lives. Her heartbeat surged. Memories of her past training roared back in vivid clarity. The countless hours in flight simulators, the missions that had pushed her beyond fear and fatigue, the split-second decisions that had saved lives. She remembered the first time she had taken control of an F-22 in combat. The jet had roared beneath her, metal and hydraulics screaming in harmony with her commands. Every sense had been heightened, every nerve ending alive with focus and precision. The thrill, the terror, the responsibility, it had all come rushing back as if no time had passed at all. Sarah took a steadying breath, fighting the surge of adrenaline. Her fingers brushed the emergency headset tucked beneath the seat. It was a relic from her Air Force days, never used in civilian travel. She slid it into place with the quiet precision of someone whose hands remembered better than her mind. "This is Viper 6, she said, her voice steady but laced with the echo of authority. For a long, impossibly long beat, nothing happened. The cabin remained calm, the engines thrummed steadily, the passengers remained unaware. But inside her chest, Sarah's pulse drummed an urgent rhythm, warning her that something significant was unfolding. Then the response came, deep, mechanical, and unmistakable. "Viper 6, all Raptors hold formation. Engage only if necessary." Sarah's stomach tightened. Her call sign, forgotten, buried, long retired, was recognized. And not by just anyone. The F-22 pilots in the sky, invisible to the passengers below, had acknowledged her authority instantly. In that moment, the plane was no longer just a civilian aircraft. It had become a node in a complex, high-stakes operation that she had once commanded. She glanced out the window. Tiny black shapes streaked across the sky, barely visible yet unmistakable, the silhouettes of F-22 Raptors, their wings catching the early morning sun. They weren't here by accident. They had been waiting, or perhaps they had been dispatched when someone realized she was aboard this flight. The precision in their formation spoke volumes. Every pilot recognized the call sign. Every pilot knew who she was. The plane shuddered slightly, a small tremor from turbulence or something else. Sarah's mind raced. She scanned the horizon. Radars, satellites, and combat simulations she had memorized flashed through her memory. There was a pattern here, a threat forming somewhere beyond her immediate vision. And it wasn't random. Someone or something was moving with intent. The pilot's voice came over the intercom, shaking slightly. "All passengers, please remain calm. We are experiencing unusual air traffic. Stand by for further instructions." The edge in his voice was faint, but Sarah caught it immediately. He had no idea who was on board 13F. He didn't know that this flight, normally routine, was now the center of an invisible storm. Her hands clenched in her lap. The passengers around her remained oblivious. A man across the aisle yawned and stretched. A woman fiddled with her phone charger. Children laughed quietly in the back. But Sarah's world had narrowed to the sky outside the window, the unseen pilots above, and the message that had just flashed across her awareness. She was needed. And whatever was coming, she couldn't hide. Suddenly, the cabin lights flickered. A soft warning beep resonated from the cockpit. Sarah's instincts screamed danger. She could feel it in the vibration of the cabin, the subtle tremor beneath the floor, the mechanical heartbeat of the plane itself. Years of aerial combat had taught her to trust these tiny signals. They often meant the difference between survival and catastrophe. She pressed a hand to the armrest and whispered almost to herself, "Not on my watch." Her voice was calm, measured, but carried an authority that had once ordered squadrons into combat. The young flight attendant walking down the aisle paused, sensing a shift in the air, though she couldn't place why. Sarah's calm wasn't ordinary, it radiated command. Outside, the F-22s began to adjust their formation. Their movements were subtle but deliberate, banking slightly, angling in a way that hinted at surveillance, not attack. Radar blips on the pilot's display, a small cluster of fast-moving objects, caught Sarah's attention. She recognized the trajectory immediately. High speed, high altitude, unidentified. Not military standard. Not civilian. Something fast, something intelligent. Her pulse surged. The passengers had no idea. They were blissfully unaware that the life-or-death calculations of the moment would be handled, at least in part, by the woman in seat 13F. Her eyes narrowed as she traced the imaginary flight paths across the sky, calculating angles, speed, and timing with the precision of someone whose muscle memory had been honed over decades. "Cabin crew," she said softly, almost automatically, "prepare for possible turbulence." The words were coded. The attendant nodded, confusion flashing across her young face, but obeyed. Sarah knew it would prepare them for more than ordinary turbulence. She hoped it would at least give them time to brace for the unknown. The captain's voice interrupted again, sharper this time. "We are tracking an incoming unidentified aircraft. All passengers remain seated." There was tension in his words, though carefully masked. Sarah's mind raced. She understood exactly what was happening. The F-22 pilots had detected the incoming threat, but the decision to engage or even assess it depended on her. No one else on the plane could make that call. Only she could. Her fingers found the emergency headset under the seat again, securing it tightly. She could feel the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. The mundane life she had returned to after leaving the Air Force, the quiet anonymity she had sought, was gone. The world above the clouds had found her, and it demanded attention. A sudden vibration, sharper than before, rocked the plane slightly. Passengers gasped, some holding armrests, some closing eyes in instinctive fear. Sarah remained calm. Her eyes scanned the horizon, her mind running simulations she hadn't run in years. She calculated speed, angle, and probability, factors she had once relied on to protect hundreds of lives in the most dangerous airspace imaginable. Then something unexpected occurred. One of the F-22s veered slightly, breaking the line of formation. A new blip appeared on radar, moving erratically, almost tauntingly, as though challenging them. Sarah's stomach twisted. Whoever or whatever this was, it wasn't acting like a standard aircraft. It was testing, probing, and waiting for a reaction. Her pulse quickened. She realized in that moment that the seemingly ordinary flight she had boarded was no longer ordinary. The plane was now a focal point in a high-stakes aerial operation, and the pilots, elite and disciplined as they were responding to her. The intercom crackled one last time in that tense sequence. "Viper 6, confirm readiness." Sarah swallowed hard. The call sign, her call sign, spoken by someone she hadn't heard in years, had shifted the balance. The F-22 pilots weren't just present, they were waiting for her guidance. Her fingers tightened around the headset. The cabin, still calm on the surface, had become a stage for a drama she had once lived, one she thought she had left behind forever. The plane climbed steadily, cutting through the clouds, and the horizon stretched endlessly before them. Every passenger remained oblivious, yet every second was now a moment of potential crisis. Sarah's heart pounded. She knew the next move would determine whether this flight remained routine or became legendary in ways no one would ever forget. And then, without warning, the plane shuddered again, a sharp, violent tremor that made coffee ripple in cups and eyes widen in terror. Sarah's gaze snapped to the window. Outside, a dark shape emerged in the distance, moving faster than anything she had trained to intercept. Her mind raced. The F-22s were in position, awaiting her command. She was no longer just a passenger. She was the key. And in that moment, the ordinary world of 13F vanished completely. Sarah's hands hovered over the emergency headset, the familiar weight of it grounding her as she took a deep breath. The words she had spoken seconds ago, "Viper," stirred a chain reaction far above the clouds. She could feel it in the way the cabin hummed beneath her fingertips, in the faint vibrations of the fuselage, and most of all, in her own racing heartbeat. The F-22 pilots above had recognized the call sign instantly. In military aviation, names carried meaning. Call signs were a combination of reputation, skill, and legacy. For them, Viper 6 wasn't a random alias. It was a name that demanded respect, the signal for split-second decisions, precision maneuvers, and deadly efficiency. They hadn't just acknowledged her, they were waiting for her command. The cabin remained a picture of oblivious normalcy. Passengers adjusted pillows, flipped through magazines, sipped lukewarm coffee. A child across the aisle yawned. A young couple whispered about hotel bookings. Yet in seat 13F, Sarah's mind raced through calculations and contingencies, simulating every possibility in real time. She traced the imaginary flight paths of the unseen threat across the sky, determining angles, speed, and intercept points as if she were back in the cockpit of a fighter jet. Viper 6, the intercom crackled again, the voice firm cutting through the ambient cabin noise. Confirm identity and status. Sarah swallowed, steadying herself. Her calm exterior masked the whirlwind inside. This is Viper 6, she said, voice low but clear, fully operational and monitoring, requesting situational briefing. The reply was instantaneous. Target acquired. Unknown aircraft, high velocity approaching from northwest quadrant. Maintain safe distance. Stand by for engagement instructions. Her pulse surged. The phrase "stand by for engagement instructions" could have terrified anyone else, but to Sarah, it was a signal. The F-22 pilots weren't here to escort, they were here to fight, and they were waiting for her to decide whether the first shot would be fired. She glanced at the overhead bins, the small smiles of the flight attendants, the oblivious chatter of passengers. None of them had any idea that their lives rested on her shoulders. One wrong command, one hesitation, could mean disaster. Her mind flickered back to the countless hours in flight simulators, the air combat drills where milliseconds were the difference between life and death. Every instinct returned as if she had never left the skis. Outside the window, the sun glinted off the wings of the approaching Raptors. They moved with uncanny precision, banking, weaving, scanning for the threat. Sarah recognized the subtle shifts in formation. They weren't just flying. They were synchronizing, anticipating, waiting for her orders. She exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of decades of training settle across her shoulders. Viper 6, the voice returned. Do you wish to engage? The words were simple, but the implications were enormous. She knew that once she spoke, the decision would set everything into motion. Hesitation could give the unknown aircraft an advantage. Rash action could trigger an uncontrollable confrontation. Her fingers tightened around the headset. Her mind assessed every scenario she could imagine. She leaned slightly toward the aisle, the hum of the engines vibrating through her chest, and whispered, "Engage on my mark. Prioritize safety of the aircraft. Avoid collateral risk." Instantly, the F-22s responded. Their sleek forms banked sharply, blades slicing through the sky with lethal grace. They moved as one, a silent, coordinated unit that would have looked like a dance from the ground if anyone had noticed. But they weren't dancing, they were hunting. Sarah's eyes remained fixed on the window. Far in the distance, the unidentified aircraft appeared as a dark, metallic silhouette, moving faster than she expected. It darted erratically, testing the boundaries of the Raptors' formation. It was intelligent, calculating, almost taunting. Every instinct screamed at her. This was not a civilian plane, not a simple threat. This was advanced, deliberate, and extremely dangerous. The captain's voice came through the intercom, slightly tighter now. "Cabin crew, please remain seated. Passengers, remain calm." He didn't know, could not know, that the woman in 13F was effectively commanding a squadron of the most advanced fighter jets in the world, directing every move against a high-speed unknown. Sarah's hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the intensity of focus. Years in the Air Force had taught her that calm was a weapon, sharper than any missile. Her voice remained steady. "Viper 6 to Raptors. Maintain distance. Observe patterns. Do not engage until target demonstrates hostile intent." The F-22s obeyed instantly, adjusting their positioning with a grace and precision that only elite pilots could achieve. Sarah felt a strange thrill, a rush of nostalgia. The memory of commanding squadrons, issuing orders that carried immense consequences, surged back. She had been out of the cockpit for over a decade, but in this moment she was exactly where she belonged. Suddenly, the plane shuddered violently. A sharp vibration coursed through the fuselage. Passengers gasped, some gripping armrests, others exchanging panicked glances. Sarah's eyes flicked to the window. The unidentified aircraft had changed its trajectory, banking sharply and accelerating toward them in a way that left no room for ordinary evasive maneuvers. Her breath caught. This was no longer reconnaissance, it was testing boundaries, probing defenses, and possibly preparing to strike. Sarah's mind worked furiously, calculating speed, distance, altitude, and wind patterns. She issued a quiet order into the headset: prepare for intercept, maintain formation integrity, watch my lead. The F-22s shifted in perfect synchronization, responding to her command without hesitation. Their movements were a language of speed, precision, and trust. She felt it: the subtle pull of adrenaline, the sharp clarity of instinct, the thrill of command returning after years of absence. Then a sudden ping alerted the pilot to an object approaching from below. Sarah's eyes widened. Another variable. The unknown aircraft wasn't alone. Someone or something was shadowing them, moving with precision designed to test, challenge, and intimidate. Her pulse raced. She whispered to herself almost a mantra: focus, calm, control. Every second counted. Every action would ripple through the sky, affecting the lives of the passengers, the pilots, and potentially countless others on the ground. Sarah's gaze returned to the unknown aircraft, its silhouette dancing against the clouds. Her lips parted. All Raptors follow my lead. Target will not dictate engagement. I am Viper 6. Respond to my command only. For a brief moment, time seemed to stretch. The engines of the plane, the quiet hum of the cabin, the distant roar of the Raptors, and the streaking silhouette of the unknown aircraft all converged into a single, tense instant. Sarah felt the full weight of her legacy, the years of training, and the responsibility she had carried into every mission of her life. And then a sudden movement, a sharp, almost imperceptible shift in the unknown aircraft's angle, made her stomach knot. It was testing her. It was challenging the authority that she hadn't expected to wield again in a civilian plane. Her jaw tightened. The calm resolve she had built over decades surged to the surface. Hold position, she ordered quietly yet firmly. Do not engage unless I give the mark. Observe, analyze, report. The F-22 pilots obeyed without question. Every motion, every calculation was precise. And Sarah, seated quietly in 13F, realized that despite the distance, despite the years, despite the civilian exterior, she was once again in command. A hush fell over her mind as adrenaline, clarity, and anticipation combined. Outside, the unknown aircraft began a series of maneuvers that suggested aggression. Sarah's pulse quickened. Every passenger remained unaware, yet the invisible stage above them had turned into a battlefield. Her fingers tightened on the headset. She whispered almost reverently, "The game begins." And in that instant, the ordinary passenger of seat 13F became the central command, the unseen strategist in a confrontation that would determine whether the skis remained safe or became a zone of catastrophe. The plane hummed, the clouds shimmered, and the horizon stretched endlessly. Yet Sarah knew one truth: the moment she had been waiting for had arrived. The skis were watching, and they were waiting for her next move. Sarah's eyes never left the horizon. The unknown aircraft, fast, agile, and deliberately evasive, slid through the sky like a shadow, testing boundaries, probing for weaknesses. The F-22 Raptors flanked the plane with lethal precision, wings slicing through the air as if they were extensions of Sarah's own commands. Yet even with their unmatched skill, she could feel the tension rippling across the formation. This opponent wasn't ordinary. It was calculating, unpredictable, and deadly. Her fingers gripped the headset tighter. Vipers maintain visual contact, track altitude, velocity, and vector changes, anticipate maneuvers. I need precision, not aggression, she ordered. In the cabin, passengers remained blissfully unaware. A man adjusted his tie. A woman scrolled through photos on her phone. A young boy in the back laughed at the reflection of clouds dancing across the fuselage. They had no idea that above them, the sky had become a battleground, and their survival now rested on the woman in 13F. Sarah's gaze flicked between the window and the cockpit displays visible from her angle. The plane shuddered slightly, a minor tremor caused by turbulence, or perhaps a warning from the aircraft itself. Years of Air Force training made her hyper-aware of every vibration, every subtle change in pressure or movement. Her senses, honed over decades, allowed her to detect anomalies invisible to ordinary eyes. She had barely had time to absorb the situation when the pilot's voice came over the intercom, tight, with controlled tension. Unknown aircraft approaching rapidly from the northwest quadrant. Recommend evasive maneuvers. Sarah's jaw tightened. Evasive maneuvers weren't just about avoiding contact. They could trigger the unknown craft to respond with aggression. A single wrong decision might escalate the situation into a catastrophic engagement. Her mind raced, replaying thousands of flight scenarios she had memorized, each one a potential roadmap through danger. "Hold formation," she said firmly into the headset. "Do not engage unless hostile intent is confirmed. Observe patterns. Report anomalies immediately." The F-22 pilots responded instantly, banking with perfect coordination. They mirrored her calm authority, trusting her instincts implicitly. Sarah marveled silently at the precision, the trust, the unspoken bond that existed even decades after she had last flown with them. These were elite pilots, the best in the world, yet their loyalty and recognition of her command was immediate. The call sign, Viper 6, was more than a name. It was a symbol of strategy, experience, and lethal capability. Outside, the unknown aircraft made another move, sharp, unexpected, and almost defiant. It darted toward the right flank of the F-22 formation, testing the boundaries again. Sarah's mind fired instantly. She calculated speed, altitude, and projected path, issuing orders with calm efficiency. Right flank intercept vector adjusted. Lead position, maintain altitude 20 feet above our plane. Anticipate evasive response. The Raptors obeyed, their movements fluid, deadly, and precise. It was as if the sky itself bent to Sarah's will, responding to commands that carried decades of experience. Her pulse surged, not from fear, but from the sheer exhilaration of control. For a brief moment, she felt alive in a way that routine civilian life had never allowed. Then a sudden tremor jolted the plane violently. Coffee cups rattled. Passengers gasped, some gripping armrests instinctively. Sarah's gaze snapped to the window. The unknown aircraft had closed in rapidly, aggressive in both speed and trajectory. It wasn't just testing, they were probing defenses, looking for weaknesses, and preparing to exploit any hesitation. Her hands tightened on the headset. She whispered to herself almost reflexively, "Focus, analyze, control." Every instinct she had relied on for decades surged back. She could feel the entire formation, the vibrations of the aircraft, and even the faint tension in the air currents outside. Every decision mattered. The pilot's voice, sharper now, came through again. "Cabin crew, brace for minor turbulence. Passengers, remain seated. Maintain calm." The calm was a fragile facade. Sarah knew the plane was about to experience more than ordinary turbulence. She adjusted her posture slightly, scanning the horizon. Radar blips danced in her mind, creating an invisible map of movement, distance, and potential threats. One wrong calculation could spell disaster, yet her instincts, trained through countless missions, allowed her to act with near-perfect timing. "Observe, do not engage," she repeated quietly, ensuring the Raptors maintained formation while avoiding unnecessary provocation. Her mind analyzed every angle, every possible trajectory, every potential outcome. This was no longer a test. It was a high-stakes engagement, and she was the unseen commander. Suddenly, the unknown aircraft shifted again, breaking from its earlier pattern. It dove sharply, banking toward the plane, then abruptly reversed. The F-22s responded with lightning speed, intercepting and guiding it away. Sarah's heart pounded, but her voice remained calm. "Right intercept team, maintain visual. Left flank, monitor vector changes. Keep formation tight." The Raptors moved in perfect synchrony, a lethal ballet in the sky. Sarah's mind raced as she predicted the unknown craft's next moves, adjusting her commands with split-second precision. She could feel the tension in every turn, every ascent, every evasive maneuver. The sky had become a chessboard, and every piece moved under her direction. Inside the cabin, a faint ripple of unease passed among passengers. Coffee sloshed in cups. A few murmurs of surprise escaped as the plane shuddered again, slightly more violently this time. Sarah ignored them. Their safety depended on her focus, on the precision of every command she issued. Then a sudden, sharp ping from the cockpit made her freeze. Another blip had appeared on radar, moving at incredible speed, closing in from an angle she hadn't anticipated. The unknown aircraft was not alone. Someone, or something, was coordinating, watching, testing the defenses. Sarah's mind shifted into overdrive. She keyed the headset and spoke with calm authority. "Vipers, I need full situational analysis. Identify speed, vector, and altitude. Maintain engagement readiness. Do not fire unless I give the mark." The F-22s adjusted instantly. Their formation became a living shield, protecting the plane from multiple angles while observing the approaching threat. Sarah felt a strange mixture of exhilaration and dread. She hadn't expected a challenge of this magnitude, not while sitting in a commercial cabin, not after leaving the Air Force. A subtle vibration traveled through the fuselage, a warning or a signal she couldn't tell. Her pulse quickened. The unknown aircraft was testing her limits, probing for hesitation, searching for mistakes. Every decision she made now carried immense weight. She glanced at the young flight attendant, whose eyes were wide with confusion, perhaps sensing that something extraordinary was happening. Sarah offered a reassuring, almost imperceptible nod. There was no time to explain. There would be time later, if anyone survived to understand what had just occurred. Outside, the unknown aircraft shifted once more, banking sharply toward the left flank of the Raptors. Sarah's heart raced. Her mind calculated the next move instantly. Right intercept, angle 65. Lead position, altitude adjustment 15 feet. Anticipate maneuver and maintain visual. Do not engage unless hostile intent confirmed. The Raptors executed flawlessly, maintaining tight formation while observing the unpredictable opponent. Sarah felt a rush of adrenaline. She was no longer just a passenger. She was the strategist, the commander, the one who controlled the outcome of an aerial chess game with stakes far higher than anyone in the cabin could imagine. And then, almost impossibly fast, the unknown aircraft executed a move that caught her off guard. It darted at extreme velocity, testing the edges of the Raptors' formation and forcing the pilots into rapid, evasive maneuvers. The plane shuddered violently. Passengers gasped, some holding their seats in terror. Sarah's jaw tightened. She whispered into the headset, steady and precise, "Maintain formation. Observe, analyze, report. Do not engage until I give the mark." Every second stretched into an eternity. Every move was critical. The unknown threat above was relentless, testing every instinct she had cultivated over decades of high-stakes flight. And Sarah, seated quietly in 13F, understood that this was only the beginning. Above, the sky had become a battlefield. Every Raptor responded to her commands as if she were back in the cockpit, leading a squadron against impossible odds. And below, the passengers remained blissfully unaware that their lives, at this very moment, were in the hands of Viper 6. Her gaze narrowed on the distant silhouette, calculating the next move, preparing for the unknown. The threat was closing in, and the stakes had never been higher. And then, a sudden, sharp movement. The unknown aircraft dived straight toward the formation. Sarah exhaled slowly, steadying herself. It was time. The unknown aircraft had shifted from observation to action. Its movements were no longer probing. They were aggressive, calculated, almost predatory. Sarah's pulse surged. Every muscle in her body tensed, every instinct honed over decades of Air Force service coming alive. She could feel the subtle vibration of the plane beneath her fingertips, the tension in the fuselage, the air pressure fluctuations, even the faint echo of turbulence caused by the Raptor's rapid adjustments. She leaned slightly forward, gripping the headset. All Raptors maintain intercept vectors. Do not break formation. Monitor the target. Avoid unnecessary engagement, she ordered, her voice calm but authoritative, every word precise. Outside, the F-22s shifted as one, weaving in perfect synchronization. Each jet mirrored her commands instantly, banking, twisting, and adjusting altitude with precision that only decades of training could produce. Sarah felt the familiar thrill, the sharp clarity of focus that had once defined her life. She had been out of the cockpit for years, yet in this moment she was exactly where she belonged. The unknown aircraft accelerated, darting left and right, testing the edges of the Raptor's formation. It was unlike any threat she had ever encountered, intelligent, adaptive, unpredictable. Her mind raced, running simulations in real time. Speed, altitude, vector, wind direction, pressure. Every factor was analyzed, recalculated, and fed into commands she issued without hesitation. Right intercept, angle 45. Lead position, maintain 20 feet above and offset 30 meters to starboard. Anticipate evasive maneuvers. Do not engage unless hostile intent confirmed, she whispered, almost to herself. Her calm tone masked the firestorm of adrenaline and calculation beneath. In the cabin, passengers remained blissfully unaware. A young mother adjusted her baby's blanket. A man reclined in his seat, headphones on, oblivious to the invisible chaos above. The contrast between the ordinary lives below and the deadly ballet in the sky above made Sarah's chest tighten. She knew that in mere moments, the thin line between routine and catastrophe could be shattered. Suddenly, the plane shuddered violently, stronger than any turbulence she had felt before. Coffee sloshed, magazines fluttered, and gasps echoed through the cabin. Sarah's eyes snapped to the window. The unknown aircraft had executed a high-speed dive directly toward the plane, banking sharply to avoid the Raptors but forcing the formation into near-imperceptible evasive maneuvers. Her mind clicked into overdrive. All Raptors split vector, lead guide formation starboard by 10 degrees, maintain visual contact and altitude integrity. Watch for secondary threat, she ordered. The commands flowed naturally, instinctive and precise, as if she had never left the cockpit. The F-22s responded immediately. Their movements were seamless, coordinated, a lethal ballet of speed and agility. Yet even as she watched, the unknown aircraft's behavior became more erratic, testing, challenging, daring them to make a mistake. Sarah's stomach twisted. Every millisecond mattered. One hesitation, one miscalculation could be disastrous. "Observe, do not engage," she repeated firmly. "Target is testing us. Wait for my mark. Safety of the plane remains priority one." Outside, the unknown aircraft executed a sharp climb, then dove again, a calculated display of speed and maneuverability that made Sarah's heart pound. She calculated the time to intercept, vector, and angle, issuing precise corrections to the Raptors. Right flank, anticipate climbing angle 15 degrees. Left intercept, maintain 20 meters vertical offset. Lead, adjust position to minimize exposure to target trajectory. The F-22s obeyed with flawless precision. Sarah felt a surge of exhilaration. It was the same clarity she had felt thousands of feet above enemy lines in her younger days, every decision vital, every movement a matter of life and death. Then the plane shuddered again, violently this time. Passengers screamed, gripping armrests, eyes wide with terror. Sarah's gaze hardened. The unknown aircraft wasn't just testing formation, it was calculating vulnerability, looking for any weakness to exploit. She keyed the headset. "All Raptors maintain intercept. Prepare for evasive maneuver delta. Target is aggressive. Monitor vector and report deviations immediately." The Raptors shifted again, slicing through the air in perfect synchrony. Sarah could feel the rhythm, the pattern, the subtle push and pull of strategy against instinct. The unknown aircraft had underestimated one thing: her ability to adapt, anticipate, and command under pressure. Suddenly, a secondary blip appeared on the radar, approaching rapidly from the horizon. Sarah's stomach clenched. The threat was multiplying. The unknown aircraft wasn't alone. Someone or something was coordinating this assault. Her mind raced through every possible scenario. She would need to balance offensive and defensive strategies simultaneously. The stakes had skyrocketed. Lead, maintain altitude and vector integrity. Right and left intercept teams, split by 10 degrees to anticipate secondary threat. Observe, do not engage, she commanded. Her voice, calm and precise, contrasted sharply with the chaos she could feel in the air around her. The unknown aircraft executed a high-speed maneuver, banking violently toward the plane. The fuselage shuddered again and Sarah's pulse surged. "Brace for turbulence," she murmured, more for herself than for the oblivious passengers. Her fingers tightened around the headset. Every command, every calculation, every instinct mattered now. The F-22s moved with incredible precision, blocking the unknown aircraft's path, forcing it into a holding pattern. Sarah felt a sense of satisfaction, not triumph but controlled focus. This was what she had trained for her entire life: crisis, speed, unpredictability, and control. She was no longer a passenger. She was the strategist, the commander, the anchor keeping everyone alive. The unknown aircraft changed tactics again, darting at extreme velocity trying to test the Raptor's coordination. Sarah's eyes narrowed. Her mind predicted the trajectory instantly. Right intercept, anticipate climb angle 20 degrees. Lead, maintain vector alignment. Secondary threat, monitor and report. No engagement without my mark. The Raptors obeyed, shifting in unison, cutting through the sky with lethal grace. Every move was a testament to training, skill, and trust. Sarah felt a surge of adrenaline, the thrill of command, the pressure of responsibility, and the clarity of instinct collided into a single moment of heightened awareness. In the cabin, a faint ripple of unease passed among the passengers. Coffee sloshed, children clutched their seats, murmurs of concern floated through the air. Yet none of them could comprehend the magnitude of what was happening beyond the windows. They were unaware that their survival depended entirely on the woman in 13F. Then, without warning, the unknown aircraft executed a rapid descent, banking sharply, closing the distance with alarming speed. The plane shook violently, and a sharp jolt rattled passengers. Sarah's jaw tightened. Her instincts screamed at her, time to act decisively. "Engage," she whispered into the headset almost reverently. Instantly, the F-22s responded with surgical precision. Their engines roared, wings carved through the sky, and the unknown aircraft's trajectory was constrained. Sarah's heart pounded as she watched the aerial chess game unfold. Every calculation, every instinct, every command she had issued was validated in real time. And just as the unknown aircraft made another sudden maneuver, Sarah realized this was no ordinary engagement. Whoever, or whatever, this was, it wasn't here to fight recklessly. It was intelligent, calculating, and aware of her presence. Her pulse surged. She whispered again into the headset, steady, calm, commanding, "Maintain formation. Observe, prepare for evasive follow-through. We control the sky, not them." The Raptors adjusted instantly, protecting the plane, constraining the threat, and following her orders with flawless precision. Sarah leaned back slightly in her seat, her eyes never leaving the window. The battle had entered a new phase, one that demanded both courage and clarity, skill and instinct. And above it all, Sarah knew one truth: she was no longer just a passenger. She was the only thing standing between the plane and everyone aboard and disaster. The sky, the aircraft, the Raptor formation, and the unknown threat converged into a tense, almost tangible web of strategy, skill, and instinct. And in the cockpit of Seat 13F, Sarah Thompson, Viper 6, was in full command. The unknown aircraft banked sharply once more, closing in with deadly intent, forcing the plane and her into the heart of the danger zone. And in that instant, Sarah knew there would be no turning back. Sarah's eyes locked on the approaching silhouette outside the window. The unknown aircraft wasn't just testing them anymore. It was attacking, closing the distance with frightening precision. Her pulse surged, but her voice remained calm and authoritative. All Raptors prepare for evasive delta. Lead, maintain altitude 20 feet above. Right and left intercept teams, anticipate vectors and adjust accordingly. Protect the plane at all costs. The F-22s banked, slicing through the air with almost liquid precision. Each movement was executed flawlessly, but the unknown aircraft was faster than any standard threat she had ever encountered. Its maneuvers were unpredictable, erratic yet intelligent, like a predator testing a hunter. Sarah's hands clenched around the headset, knuckles white. Her mind ran thousands of calculations per second: speed, distance, wind, vector adjustments, threat assessment, all while maintaining the composure of a civilian passenger. The irony wasn't lost on her. A decade after leaving the Air Force, she was commanding a squadron from a seat designed for comfort, not combat. Inside the cabin, tension began to seep through. The plane shuddered violently, coffee spilling, and passengers gripping armrests in terror. A young child began crying. Sarah's eyes darted briefly, acknowledging their fear, but she had no time to comfort them. The responsibility of every life aboard rested squarely on her shoulders. "Target aggressive," she whispered into the headset. "Observe patterns. Do not engage unless my mark is given. Prioritize the plane's safety above all else." The unknown aircraft dove sharply, forcing the Raptors into rapid, evasive maneuvers. The plane trembled under the sudden gusts of air turbulence created by the jet's sudden shifts. Sarah's stomach tightened. The unknown craft was testing the boundaries of the civilian aircraft, probing for weakness, looking for the smallest misstep. Her mind flicked through simulations she had memorized years ago: potential attack vectors, blind spots, evasive maneuvers, and interception strategies. Everything was running in real time, every decision critical. Lead, anticipate descending vector 25 degrees. Right intercept, maintain 30 meters offset. Left intercept, watch for secondary engagement. The Raptors responded instantly, banking and weaving in perfect synchronization. Each jet moved as if it were an extension of her will, a lethal ballet that safeguarded the plane while containing the unknown threat. Sarah's pulse pounded with adrenaline, the same clarity and focus she had felt thousands of feet above enemy lines during missions she could barely talk about. Then a sudden, sharp ping on the radar made her freeze. A secondary object appeared, moving at extreme velocity, approaching from below. The unknown aircraft was not acting alone. Coordination was evident. Sarah's stomach clenched. The threat had multiplied, testing her ability to manage multiple vectors simultaneously. "Vipers," she said, voice calm but commanding, "track primary and secondary threats. Maintain formation integrity. Adjust intercept vectors to anticipate evasive maneuvers. Do not engage without my mark." The Raptors shifted instantly, their engines roaring like a symphony of precision. Sarah felt a rush of adrenaline as her commands shaped the battlefield above. Her decades of training, long dormant, returned with stunning clarity. She was in her element: danger, precision, responsibility, and control, but with far more at stake than any mission she had flown before. The plane shuddered violently again. Passengers screamed, a few clinging to the seats in panic. Coffee cups flew, magazines tumbled, and the faint smell of fear mixed with jet fuel in the cabin. Sarah's gaze remained fixed outside. She knew panic among passengers could lead to chaos, yet there was no time for reassurance. Every decision now was tactical. Every second mattered. The unknown aircraft made a daring maneuver, banking sharply to the left. Sarah's mind calculated the trajectory instantly. Right intercept, angle 40 degrees. Lead, maintain vector 20 feet above. Secondary team, track descent path. Target shows hostile intent. The Raptors moved in unison, cutting off the path of the unknown aircraft, forcing it into a constrained trajectory. Sarah's heart raced. The unknown craft wasn't ordinary. It was engineered, intelligent, and calculated. Whoever, or whatever, was controlling it knew how to test defenses, probing for hesitation and weakness. "Observe. Engage only if necessary," she repeated firmly. "The safety of the plane remains our priority." A sudden violent shudder reverberated through the cabin. Passengers cried out in fear, gripping the armrests. The plane tilted slightly, fighting the invisible pull of high-speed maneuvers above. Sarah's hands tightened on the headset. Her voice was calm, precise, commanding. "All Raptors adjust intercept. Lead, anticipate rapid ascent. Right and left intercept, maintain formation. Observe and report anomalies immediately." The F-22s responded flawlessly. Their wings carved through the sky in perfect unison, each move calculated and precise. Sarah felt a surge of exhilaration, an electric mixture of fear, adrenaline, and pure clarity. This was what she had trained for her entire life: high stakes, rapid decision-making, and the life of every person below depending on her skill. The unknown aircraft dove again, closing the distance. Sarah's mind raced. She had to maintain the balance between control and risk, authority and restraint. A single misstep could endanger everyone aboard. "Prepare for evasive delta," she whispered. "Lead, guide the formation. Right intercept, monitor target. Left intercept, maintain offset. Secondary threat, track vector changes." The Raptors executed perfectly, forming a protective shield around the plane, constraining the unknown aircraft's movement. Sarah felt a strange calm, a focus she hadn't experienced since her final combat missions. She was in control, the sky obeying her commands, yet the unknown aircraft continued to test boundaries relentlessly. Then something unexpected happened. The unknown aircraft executed a rapid climb, attempting to break the Raptors' formation. Sarah's pulse surged. "Lead, maintain altitude. Right and left intercept, adjust vector. Do not allow separation. Prepare for engagement mark." The Raptors shifted instantly, cutting off escape paths, guiding the unknown aircraft into a controlled area where its maneuvers could be monitored. Sarah's heart pounded. The battle had escalated beyond testing. The threat was now unmistakably hostile, and her commands had kept the plane, and everyone aboard, safe thus far. Inside the cabin, passengers whispered anxiously. Some had begun noticing the turbulence, the violent shudders, the odd behavior of the plane, but none could see the full scope of the aerial chess game unfolding just above them. Sarah's calm authority was the invisible shield protecting them all. She exhaled slowly, regaining composure. Her eyes tracked the unknown aircraft's movements. "Vipers," she said softly, "engagement mark imminent. Observe all vectors. Engage only on my confirmation. Target shows increasing aggression." The Raptors adjusted their positions, ready to intercept. Sarah's instincts, sharpened over decades of combat, predicted every move. She could almost feel the invisible threads of movement, calculation, and strategy connecting her commands to the pilot's actions. She was the orchestrator of a deadly ballet, seated quietly in 13F. The unknown aircraft made a final, aggressive move, diving toward the plane with frightening speed. The plane shuddered violently and passengers screamed. Sarah's hands gripped the headset, knuckles white. Her voice was calm, commanding. "Mark engaged. Intercept. Protect the plane. Engage with precision." The F-22s responded instantly. Engines roared, wings carved through the air, and the unknown aircraft's trajectory was constrained. Sarah felt a surge of adrenaline. The unknown craft had underestimated her, misjudged her skill and authority. And as the aircraft engaged in a deadly maneuver with the Raptors, Sarah realized one thing: this was far from over. The sky had become a battlefield, and she, Viper 6, was in full command. The plane shuddered again. The unknown aircraft circled, recalculating, testing limits. Sarah's pulse surged. Every second, every command, every instinct would determine whether they survived or fell into catastrophe. And in seat 13F, the ordinary passenger had vanished entirely. The unknown aircraft wasn't just fast, it was intelligent, adaptive, and relentless. Its movements were erratic yet deliberate, testing every defensive measure Sarah had orchestrated. She could feel the tension reverberating through the plane with each shift, each dive, each climb of the predator in the sky. The Raptors flanked the plane like shadows of steel, engines roaring, wings slicing through the clouds, but the threat continued its probing assault. Sarah gripped the headset tighter, knuckles white. All intercept teams maintain formation. Lead, adjust vector to compensate for turbulence. Right flank, monitor approach from below. Left flank, cover starboard angle. Do not engage unless I give the mark. Her voice was calm, authoritative, commanding, a stark contrast to the chaos she could feel around her. Every second counted. Every decision could mean the difference between life and death for the 150 passengers who still believed this was just another routine flight. The unknown aircraft executed a sharp dive, banking low toward the civilian plane. The fuselage trembled violently, sending shudders through the cabin. Coffee spilled, and passengers gripped their armrests in terror. A young boy's scream pierced the air. Sarah's heart clenched, but she remained focused. Panic now would be fatal. She had to control the chaos above and below. Lead, maintain altitude 20 feet above the plane. Right intercept, anticipate climbing maneuver. Left intercept, watch vector deviations. Prepare for evasive delta, she instructed. The Raptors responded instantly, adjusting with breathtaking precision. Sarah's heart raced as she watched the deadly ballet unfold outside the window. The unknown aircraft was clever, unpredictable, but so was she. Every move she had learned in decades of combat now played out in real time, each calculation feeding into the next, shaping the battlefield in the sky. A sudden alert pinged from the cockpit radar. Another blip, smaller, faster, appeared on a collision course from the opposite direction. Sarah's stomach tightened. The threat had multiplied. She realized with a cold clarity that the unknown aircraft wasn't acting alone. This was coordinated, intentional, and far more dangerous than a simple rogue plane. "Secondary threat identified," she said into the headset, voice calm but urgent. "All intercept teams adjust vectors. Lead, maintain formation integrity. Engage only if hostile intent is confirmed. Protect the plane at all costs." The Raptors adjusted with seamless precision. Sarah's heart pounded as she tracked every vector, every trajectory, every potential risk. Her pulse surged with a mixture of fear, adrenaline, and exhilaration. This wasn't just a test, it was a battle for survival. The unknown aircraft dove again, banking sharply, forcing evasive maneuvers from the Raptors. The civilian plane shuddered violently. Passengers screamed, clinging to their seats. A magazine flew from an overhead bin and the lights flickered. Sarah's jaw tightened. The ordinary world she had entered hours ago had vanished. She was no longer a passenger. She was Viper 6, commanding the sky, the aircraft, and every life aboard. Right intercept, anticipate dive vector 30 degrees. Lead, guide formation with offset 20 meters. Left intercept, monitor secondary threat. Observe all vectors, she commanded. The Raptors moved like extensions of her will, weaving, banking, and maneuvering in perfect synchronization. Sarah's mind calculated speed, altitude, vector, wind resistance, and the potential reactions of both unknown aircraft. Every instinct sharpened, every decision critical. She felt the thrill of command, the weight of responsibility, and the edge of fear collide into a single, electrifying focus. The unknown aircraft now executed a daring maneuver, looping behind the Raptors to attempt a direct approach on the civilian plane. Sarah's pulse surged. Time compressed, milliseconds stretching into eternity. "Engage Mark," she whispered, her voice calm, precise, lethal. Instantly, the Raptors responded. Engines roared, wings sliced through clouds, and the unknown aircraft's path was cut off. Sarah felt a surge of exhilaration. Her command had taken control of the battlefield. The unknown craft was clever, but it had underestimated her. Lead, maintain vector. Right intercept, prepare for follow-through. Left intercept, monitor flanking angles. Do not allow separation, she instructed. Her voice was steady, authoritative, every syllable carrying the weight of decades of experience. Outside, the unknown aircraft banked violently, attempting a sudden maneuver to break the formation. The Raptors adjusted, maintaining a lethal shield around the plane. Sarah's heart pounded. The unknown craft was faster, smarter, and more aggressive than anything she had anticipated, but so was she. The plane trembled under the combined forces of high-speed maneuvers and turbulence. Passengers screamed, gripping armrests, some closing their eyes in terror. Sarah's pulse raced, but her focus remained unbroken. She was the only thing standing between survival and catastrophe. Then, unexpectedly, the unknown aircraft performed a maneuver that shocked her. A coordinated loop with the secondary threat, attempting to flank from two directions simultaneously. Sarah's mind fired at lightning speed. She recalculated every trajectory, every potential angle, every evasive path in a split second. All intercept teams Delta maneuver now. Lead, maintain vector 20 feet above. Right intercept, cover starboard. Left intercept, cover port. Engage only if hostile intent confirmed. Protect the plane, she commanded. The Raptors executed flawlessly. Their engines roared, wings slicing the sky with deadly precision, cutting off the paths of the unknown threats. Sarah's pulse surged. She had regained control, but the intensity of the confrontation left no room for error. The unknown aircraft hesitated, recalculating. For a moment it was clear. They were testing her limits, probing for weakness, searching for hesitation. Sarah's eyes narrowed. She would not falter. "Observe patterns. Adjust intercept vectors. Stand by for follow-up engagement," she instructed. Her voice was calm, but every word carried lethal authority. The Raptors shifted in perfect unison, maintaining formation, protecting the plane, and constraining the unknown aircraft's maneuvers. Sarah felt a strange combination of exhilaration, dread, and clarity. She was commanding the most advanced fighter jets in the world, directing a deadly engagement from a civilian seat. Outside, the sky seemed to shimmer with tension. Clouds streaked past, engines roared, and the unknown aircraft darted with terrifying speed. Sarah's fingers tightened on the headset. She knew the next move would determine the outcome of this confrontation. The unknown craft attempted another aggressive maneuver, closing in rapidly. Sarah exhaled slowly, steadying herself. She whispered almost reverently, "Engage fully. Protect the plane. Neutralize threat." The Raptors responded instantly, engaging with lethal precision. The unknown aircraft was forced into a constrained path, its attacks deflected, its movements monitored, and its aggression countered. Sarah's focus never wavered. Every calculation, every command, every instinct mattered. And then a brief calm descended. The unknown aircraft had pulled back, circling warily, testing boundaries once more. The Raptors maintained their shield. Sarah leaned back slightly, her eyes never leaving the horizon. For a moment, the cabin seemed to catch its breath. Passengers, still shaken, whispered nervously, unaware of the invisible storm that had just raged above them. Sarah allowed herself a brief glance at them, their obliviousness a stark contrast to the deadly ballet just outside. She pressed a hand to her chest, feeling her own heartbeat, the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. The unknown aircraft was still out there, still calculating, still a threat. But for now she had control. She was Viper 6, commanding the sky, the F-22s, and the safety of every life aboard. And as the unknown aircraft circled, watching, waiting, Sarah knew one truth. The final move was coming. The next seconds would determine whether this battle ended in survival or disaster. She tightened her grip on the headset. Stay sharp. The sky is ours for now, but the fight isn't over. The plane shuddered gently, a deceptive calm settling over the cabin. Outside, the F-22s maintained their perfect formation. The unknown aircraft loomed in the distance, calculating, testing, and preparing. Sarah exhaled slowly. The edge of catastrophe had passed for the moment, but the ultimate challenge was still ahead. And in seat 13F, the ordinary passenger had disappeared entirely. Sarah's eyes never left the sky. The unknown aircraft circled at a distance, sharp, calculating, and seemingly unconquerable. Its movements had been relentless for nearly half an hour, probing, testing, daring her to make a mistake. And yet she had held her composure, directed the F-22s with precision, and safeguarded everyone aboard. Now the final decision rested on her. The ultimate maneuver would determine survival, and she felt the weight of every life in the cabin pressing down on her chest. Her fingers tightened on the headset. All Raptors, final intercept vector. Lead, maintain 20 feet above. Right and left intercept, anticipate aggressive maneuver. Engage fully only on my mark. Protect the plane at all costs. The F-22s banked, slicing through the air with deadly grace. Each movement was synchronized perfectly, a ballet of steel, speed, and precision. Sarah's pulse surged, not with fear but with controlled adrenaline. She had been here before in combat zones where milliseconds defined life or death, but this was different. These were civilians, innocent lives, depending entirely on her judgment. Outside, the unknown aircraft made another daring approach, banking sharply, attempting to break through the formation. Sarah's jaw tightened. Lead, vector adjustment 15 degrees starboard. Right intercept, anticipate dive. Left intercept, monitor secondary path. Engage on my mark. The Raptors responded instantly. Engines roared, wings slicing through clouds. The unknown craft hesitated, calculating its options, realizing the trap that Sarah had orchestrated. Her mind raced, projecting trajectories, anticipating every evasive maneuver the aircraft might attempt. Every calculation, every instinct, every command had brought them to this moment, the final confrontation. The plane shuddered violently as turbulence and the maneuvers of the Raptors rippled through the fuselage. Passengers screamed, gripping armrests, some closing their eyes. Sarah's pulse surged, but her focus was absolute. She had to remain calm, precise, and unyielding. Every instinct told her this was the moment of truth. "Engage," she whispered almost reverently. The Raptors responded immediately, moving with lethal precision. They cut off the unknown aircraft's escape route, constraining it within a controlled area. Sarah felt a surge of exhilaration as her decades of experience, long dormant, came alive. She was not just a passenger. She was Viper 6, orchestrating the most critical aerial engagement of her life. The unknown aircraft darted violently, attempting a high-speed escape. Sarah's mind predicted its trajectory instantly. Right intercept, adjust altitude 20 feet. Lead, guide formation to flank target. Left intercept, cut off secondary path. Full engagement now. The F-22s accelerated, engines screaming, closing the gap with surgical precision. The unknown aircraft attempted a final evasive maneuver, but Sarah had anticipated it. The Raptors moved in perfect synchronization, blocking every angle, cutting off every potential escape. A sudden jolt shook the plane. Passengers screamed, some praying, some frozen in terror. Sarah's hands gripped the headset tightly. Her voice, calm and commanding, cut through the chaos. "Stay focused. Brace for turbulence. Maintain formation. Safety of the plane remains priority one." The unknown aircraft, realizing it was cornered, made a desperate move. a sharp dive intended to intimidate and break the formation. Sarah's mind raced through calculations. Timing, angle, speed, wind resistance, all were analyzed in a split second. She issued her final command: lead, execute, intercept, maneuver, delta. Right and left intercept, converge. Engage fully, neutralize threat. The F-22s responded instantly. Engines roared like thunder, wings sliced through the sky, and the unknown aircraft was forced into a tight, constrained trajectory. Sarah's pulse surged with adrenaline and satisfaction. Every decision, every command had worked perfectly. She had outmaneuvered the threat, protecting the plane and everyone aboard. The unknown aircraft banked sharply, then suddenly powered away, retreating beyond radar range. Sarah exhaled slowly, her body trembling from the tension. She allowed herself a brief glance at the cabin. Passengers were still frozen, some crying, some hugging each other, others staring wide-eyed at the ceiling. They had no idea how close they had come to disaster or who had saved them. She leaned back slightly in her seat, her fingers still on the headset. All Raptors maintain escort. Monitor airspace until we reach safe altitude. Viper 6 out. For the first time, the adrenaline ebbed, leaving behind a deep exhaustion mixed with exhilaration. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. She had done it. She had kept the plane safe, commanded elite fighter jets, and outmaneuvered a threat that could have been catastrophic. The cabin slowly began to regain calm. The flight attendants moved cautiously, offering water and reassurance, though their eyes betrayed the lingering fear. Passengers whispered among themselves, still shaken, still unaware of the invisible battle that had raged above them. Sarah's gaze softened as she looked around. In that moment, she felt a quiet pride. She had protected them all. Her mind replayed every maneuver, every command, every second of the confrontation. The unknown aircraft had been clever, aggressive, and dangerous, but so had she. Her instincts, her experience, and her ability to remain calm under pressure had turned the tide. She had not just survived, she had prevailed. Outside the window, the sky stretched endlessly, calm now, the clouds drifting peacefully as if nothing had happened. The F-22s maintained their escort, a silent tribute to her command and authority. She allowed herself a moment to breathe, to reflect on the gravity of what had just occurred. For decades, Sarah had trained, served, and commanded in the skies. She had faced countless threats, made split-second decisions, and carried the weight of responsibility. But nothing compared to this. A civilian aircraft, 40,000 feet above the ground, lives depending entirely on her, and she had risen to the occasion. The captain's voice came over the intercom, calm now, tinged with relief. "Ladies and gentlemen, the turbulence has passed. Please remain seated until further notice. Thank you for your patience." Sarah allowed herself a faint smile. The passengers had no idea how close they had come to catastrophe, no idea who had truly been in control. For now, it didn't matter. She had saved them. That was enough. Her mind lingered on the F-22 pilots above. She imagined their salutes, their acknowledgement of her authority. For a brief, fleeting moment, she felt the weight of recognition and respect, a reminder that she had not lost the skills, the instincts, or the courage that had defined her career. As the plane continued its course toward its destination, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the wings. Sarah leaned back in her seat, finally allowing herself to relax. She had faced danger, commanded elite pilots, and protected countless lives. The ordinary passenger in 13F was gone. In her place stood Viper 6, strategist, leader, hero. She closed her eyes briefly, letting the tension drain from her body. When she opened them, she saw the world through a new lens. She had been tested, pushed to the edge, and had emerged victorious. The sky had been her battlefield, and she had won. And as the plane descended toward the airport, engines humming steadily, the passengers still unaware, Sarah whispered quietly to herself, "I may have been just a passenger, but today I was everything they needed me to be." The F-22s slowly peeled away, engines fading into the distance. Outside, the sky was calm, the sun setting in streaks of orange and purple. Inside, life would return to ordinary. But for Sarah Thompson, Viper 6, nothing would ever be ordinary again. The ordinary passenger in 13F had vanished forever.